discuss a little the Mishnah and the Gemara that we learned. So to begin with, so we have the Mishnah. The Mishnah told us about a person who sees a place that miracles happened, and he says a special bracha. And we discussed the bracha is Baruch Sha'asa Nisim Labisino B'Makam Hazeh. Blessed is a Hashem who made miracles to our fathers in this place. And the Gemara had told us a source for this. What was the source in the Gemara? The source was the story of Yisro. That Yisro, he said, Baruch Hashem Asher Hitzil, blessed is Hashem that saved Eschem, you, Miyad Mitzrayim, Miyad Paroi, from the hands of Egypt, the hands of Pharaoh. He saved the nation from the slavery. So we see from the story of Yisro, from his bracha, that he recited that you're supposed to recite a bracha on a miracle. And then the Mishnah mentioned that if you see a place that nekra mimeno akum, that the avodah zarah was removed, you have another bracha, she'akar akum me'artzenu. And we mentioned yesterday that there is the Taisus over here mentions that it's when Eretz Yisrael, when you remove avodah zarah from Eretz Yisrael, and there is a question if Taisus means from the entire Eretz Yisrael or just part of, or any time you remove idol worship, any specific place, would you recite a bracha then as well? Or it could be that there's a different wording for the bracha. So there's a lot of discussion about these things, and I just want to share it with you, that there is discussion among the commentaries that could be that if just one location of idol worship in Israel is removed, you would say Baruch Sha'akar Akum Me Hamakim Hazeh, from this place, and Me Artseinu, from our land, would be when the entire idol worship is removed from Israel. And one of the things that we learn about in the Nevi'im, in the prophets, is that Hashem really wanted that we should make sure the entire Israel is empty from idol worship. So that sort of goes hand in hand with this idea that when the entire Israel would be empty from idol worship, you would say this bracha that Akar Akum Me Artzenu, that the entire Israel is now, is cleansed, so to speak. And that fits with the idea that Israel is a land that really should involve. Israel is a land that that it says Einei Hashem lekecha ba mereishis hashana v'adachar hashana, the eyes of Hashem are on it. It says from the beginning of the year to the end of the year, and the commentaries ask, well, what does that mean? I think Rashi even brings it down. It must be a medrash that it says. Hashem sees everything. So the answer is that Hashem sees everything through Israel. That in a certain sense is more of a gaze upon Israel, and through gazing at Israel, God sees all the surrounding countries. And what that means to us is that a mitzvah done in Israel has greater importance, greater reward. Let me mute everyone here.
Relax, lady, relax.
Okay. And the avera, a sin done in Israel, carries with it more punishment, because it's more severe. Anything done in Israel, it's like Hashem is right in front of you. So you're number one doing a mitzvah there. You're you're making Hashem proud, so to speak, and doing an Avera in Israel is like rebelling in front of Hashem. So in fact, people used to write a letter. They would write to the Lubavitcher Rebbe that they wanted to move to Israel. And one of the things the Rebbe used to often tell them is, that's very nice that you want to move to Israel, but first strengthen yourself in Torah and Mitzvahs and then move to Israel. Because any mitzvah that you do in Israel and any Avera that you do in Israel is much more serious. And I believe it's based on this idea that Einei Hashem Alekecha Ba, that Hashem is gazing at Israel, and only through that gaze does Hashem really see outside, or Hashem see everything outside of Israel. But in Israel, it's much more, you're like in front of the king, you're in the palace. And therefore it carries with it more severity. So the Mishnah mentioned to us this law of removing idol worship from Israel, and I mentioned that there are difference of opinions, basically based on if it applies to the entire Israel or if you just remove idol worship. And then the question is, what happens if idol worship is removed anywhere? Is there a bracha for that? And on that, there also are opinions that say, yes, you would say the bracha a little differently than Me'artzenu, but you would say the bracha for removing idol worship. You would say the bracha for removing idol worship, Me'hamakim hazeh. Now, the Mishnah continued and it mentioned about the bracha for different types of storms, and mentions the bracha for zikins, zavais, ra'amim, these type of either a shooting star, earthquakes, thunder, winds, lightning, and the bracha was koichai ugvurasai malayolam, that Hashem's power fills the world. Now, yesterday we mentioned that there are brachas that you say only once every 30 days. Leprakim, it's called, for at intervals. When you see, let's say, the Yam Hagadol, the big sea, which we said is a debate what that means. So you only say that bracha once every 30 days. So if you see it every day, you wouldn't say that bracha. The question is, why when it thunders or lightning, when there's lightning, this bracha you could say 2 days in a row? Why the other bracha would you only say once every 30 days? Anyone have any thoughts on that? In other words, if you have a storm today and there's lightning or thunder, you would say this bracha. We actually say two brachas. We say for thunder, we say for lightning, we say but for if it had a storm tomorrow, we would do the same thing. We would say the bracha for the storm. However, if we saw the ocean 2 days in a row, you would not say the bracha twice. You would say it. You would say it the first time. Yes, Ben.
Because the ocean was created once. The storm is created when you see it, or the lightning is created when you see it, and the next one is created again, and you see it.
It's a different storm, basically. The ocean is the same ocean.
New creation. It's a new creation.
Right. Okay. Good. So the ocean is the same ocean, but the storm is a different storm, and therefore you could say it now. Within one storm, even though it's a different lightning, you would not say the bracha again, even though it's a different streak of lightning. Yes, Mordechai.
Or I guess, yeah, I like Ben's answer, but I guess another possibility is, I mean, it's true that an ocean has waves, but it's generally like a passive thing, whereas, say, like the thunder is a constant reminder of Hashem's might.
The thunder comes from Hashem's might, and therefore?
So there, in other words, it's like an active, I mean, of course, Hashem sustains the ocean, but the fact that that Hashem's might is being exhibited.
And would that be different than the Oise Yam Hagadol, Osas Yam Hagadol? That it's also like an exhibition of Hashem's power that He created this big Yam. Would it be different? It's more.
I guess like the ocean is like constantly there.
Say that again. It's what?
I guess like the ocean is like constantly.
Right.
there.
Right. Okay. Fine. Okay. Good,
I mean, of
okay.
course, it's a reminder. I mean, when somebody sees the ocean, of course it's a reminder that Hashem made the ocean. But I'm just saying that the other, like with the lightning and the thunder, it's like a reminder of Hashem's might.
Okay.
I mean that's just my opinion.
Right. Okay. Fine. Okay. Listen, is it's got to be explained the difference, but it sounds more or less similar to Ben. The Mishnah then mentioned that for mountains, hills, seas, rivers, deserts, person says this bracha oisei bereshis, and the commentaries mention that it's only when it's a very large mountain, a large hill, a large sea, not just a regular sea and regular river, but on something that's really unique, you would say this bracha. And we mentioned also at length about Rabbi Yehuda saying Baruch she'asa sayam hagadol, that he mentions this bracha about seeing the Yam Hagadol, about seeing the Great Sea. We mentioned a discussion about is Rabbi Yehuda really arguing on the previous is Rabbi Yehuda arguing on the previous opinion or not? And this it takes us into this issue of why does the Rambam follow Rabbi Yehuda? Why does the Shulchan Aruch follow Rabbi Yehuda? If really Rabbi Yehuda's arguing on the Tanakama, and really the first opinion, the halacha should follow him instead of Rabbi Yehuda. And so this is discussion in the commentaries because we know that Rabbi Yehuda argued when it came to vegetables that there were different types. He divided vegetables. He says you have to say different bracha for each specific type of vegetable. So legumes had their bracha, and green vegetables had their bracha. So the question was, why don't we follow Rabbi Yehuda over there, and over here we are following Rabbi Yehuda when he says to say a specific bracha for the yam. So I wanted to mention to you, there is another statement of Rabbi Yehuda in a different Gemara that says, what happens when you have many mitzvahs in front of you? Let's say you're gonna sit in the sukkah, and you're going to shake the lulav and esrog. What bracha do you say? So one opinion was that you say Asher Kedeshanu b'mitzvaysav, that Hashem made us holy with His mitzvahs, and He commanded us al hamitzvahs, for the mitzvahs. That's one opinion. And Rabbi Yehuda says, no, you got to say each bracha individually. For shaking lulav, you say the bracha for shaking lulav. For sitting in the sukkah, eating, you have to say a bracha for dwelling in the sukkah. Each bracha individually. which regarding this law, the halacha follows Reb Yehuda. So it could be that based on this, Reb Yehuda is following his view from Tractate Sukkah, and we follow Reb Yehuda in those laws. And he bases it on a pasuk that says, Baruch Hashem Yom Yom. Blessed is Hashem every day. And the Gemara asks, do you only bless Hashem by day? Why does it say blessed is Hashem Yom Yom each day? What about at night? At night you don't bless Hashem? But rather, the Gemara says, rather what it means is every day you should give Hashem for those specific praises, you should praise Hashem. And what that means is that each item deserves its praise. And we follow Rabbi Yehuda regarding these halachas. In other words, regarding the law of which bracha do you say on the mitzvahs, you say each mitzvah deserves its own bracha. And therefore, Rabbi Yehuda maybe follows that view, which we also we accept Rabbi Yehuda's view regarding the mitzvahs, and Rabbi Yehuda maybe here is following that same view that you would say the bracha on the Yam HaGadol, that because it's so unique, it deserves its own bracha because of its specialty. So anyway, what comes out from here is that it seems in Shulchan Aruch that they do follow this view of Rabbi Yehuda. The simple understanding is because Rabbi Yehuda is not arguing on the first view, he's just adding a point. And there are other ways of explaining it as well, that it could be that Rabbi Yehuda, the earlier view is agreeing with Rabbi Yehuda, but Rabbi Yehuda might be arguing on what the first view said. So there is such a way of explaining it that Rabbi Yehuda would hold that on the other oceans, you don't say any bracha. Only on the Yam HaGadol, you say a bracha. And on that's what the argument is. But everyone agrees that on the Yam HaGadol, you do say the special bracha. That would be a way of explaining the Rambam in the Shulchan Aruch. Again, we're trying to explain how they fit with this opinion of Rabbi Yehuda, who we don't seem to follow when it talked about the laws of vegetables. We didn't seem to follow him. Why here are we following him? So that's what we're dealing with. Yes, Ben.
I'm sorry, but I want to go back to the word la'akor, avodah zarah, in Israel or in other lands, and if I can, and la'akor in Hebrew is to pull out with the roots,
right?
Not just to pull it out. That's why we only use it for teeth. You say la'akor shen or la'akor etz, but you don't say it for other things that you just pull out a vegetable or something. It's no big deal. But on a tree or on a tooth, because you don't want it to come back. And avodah zarah, you don't want it to come back. So you use that word la'akor. And why they say it, especially in Israel, is because Israel, the land was given to us. And if you do avodah zarah there, it's like doing nasty things in somebody's house that he just invited you to his house, and then you do nasty things there, it's terrible. But if you do it outside, or if you do it in other lands, it's not as terrible.
Mm-hmm. So good point, Ben, about the to be oiker, to uproot the avodah zarah, that which is one of the things that the good kings they tried to do was to get rid of any seed of idol worship, anything that might lead to it. They tried to uproot it completely, and it wasn't easy because it was one of the desires, the physical desires, the lusts that people had was to worship idols. Then we don't understand it, but that was so they needed to uproot it completely. They had to try to get rid of anything that might resemble idol worship. They tried to uproot. So yeah, good point about the word oiker. Very good point. Okay.
And why they said Israel is different than the other lands?
Right. Well, the wording of the bracha is for sure different because it's May Artsenu.
Right.
And there are opinions that even that in other lands, either you wouldn't say any bracha or you would say a bracha, but you definitely don't say the word Artsenu. You would say May Hamaklim Hazeh. So you wouldn't. Yeah. So there are different opinions about that. Okay. So coming back to we mentioned this Reb Yehuda and the Yam Hagadol and we also mentioned a while back about what's the final verdict, like what do you do, because there are different opinions of what the Yam Hagadol, what is this big sea. It's either the Mediterranean or the ocean, and because of that, the simplest thing to do is you just say the bracha of Oisa Maise Bereshis, that Hashem created miraculous things, Hashem created wondrous things in creation, and there are I mean, in Shulchan Aruch it mentions to say this special bracha, but the problem is there are different opinions of when to say it. Should you say it for the Mediterranean or should you say it for the ocean? There is an option of combining the two brachas, that you would say Oisa Maise Bereshis Sha'asas Hayam Hagadol, that you could say both brachas together in one bracha. You would combine the two, and this way it's almost like you are correcting yourself from saying the Oisa Maise Bereshis with the Sha'asas Hayam Hagadol, and this way it would be considered no matter what you say is okay, because either you corrected yourself or you just added some words afterwards. But either way, you definitely said the right bracha. Now, after the law of Yam Hagadol, the Mishnah mentions about rain, and it said for rain and on good tidings, what does a person say? Baruch Hatoiv v'hametiv, which is similar to the bracha we say in benching, Hatoiv v'hametiv, the fourth blessing in the benching, the grace after meal. But this bracha would be Hatoiv v'hametiv, who is good and does good. Blessed is Hashem, who is good and he does good. And for bad tidings, the person would say, what the bracha would be Baruch Dayon Ha'emes. Now, the wording that yes.
I have a question. What's the difference between a shofet and a dayan?
I'm not sure there is. I think they're two words. I don't know. You tell me.
I'm asking the question. I don't know. What are the implications of the two terms?
Yeah, I'm not really sure that there is a difference. I mean, I guess we could keep it in mind and go through the Gemara, but I'm not sure. You're saying, why don't we say Baruch Shofet HaEmes?
No, I'm saying why? Well,
I guess the
in
difference
some places
would be,
it says Dayan and the other one says Shofet.
I would think just just off the top of my head, that a Shofet is more than just a judge for a specific court case, but a Shofet would be someone who is someone who could be like a leader, like the Shoftim, and for a Dayan is more specific, specific court ruling. So I would think that maybe would be the difference. Like a shofet is more of a judge, but in a but in a much broader sense. I think that would answer your question. Sounds good.
Whatever. As I said, I'm just trying to understand
Get the words.
what the nuances are between the two terms.
Right. Okay. But I mean, I guess you could see that from the fact that the whole book of Shoftim, they weren't exactly people who judged the Bnei Yisrael. They were, that was one of the things that they did, but there was a major element of being a leader and leading them into war and so on, and they were called the Shoftim. So I guess it has a broader sense of the term to be a shofet and lead, leading the Jewish people. Okay, so what I was mentioning was the wording here, Baruch Hatoiv Besurais Toivais and Besurais Ra'is. Now it's interesting that Rashi later, not here, but Rashi later on in the Gemara, he actually changes the term from Besurais, when he mentions here Besurais, he calls it Besurais Toivais, and he says Shmuais Ra'is. Shmuais Ra'is, bad tidings. He doesn't call it a Basura, he calls it Shmuais. And it could be, one of the commentaries mentions that this is the reason for this is because for giving someone good tidings that's a good thing. People love to share good news, but for bad news, it's like a negative thing to share. So you wouldn't call it Besurais Toivais, it would be more Besurais Ra'is. It would be Shmuais Ra'is. Bad hearing, you'd have to try to listen to find out, because people are not running to give bad news. There's a negative thing in the Gemara about giving bad news. We try not to be the bearer of bad news. So in any event, there's a bracha that one recites for good tidings, teva meitiv. Bad tidings, it would be Baruch Dayan Ha'emes. And then the Mishnah spoke about building a new house in buying kalim chadoshim. Now, buying kalim chadoshim would be like buying new garments. That one translation of kalim is garments, but there is another translation, kalim, which the simple literal translation is vessels. And so there is discussion as to would a person make a shehechiyanu for buying, different machinery or utensils. In fact, there is a opinion of Reb Moshe Feinstein that a person should say the bracha shehechiyanu when he buys a new car. There is such a view. In other words, when you buy a new car, there are certain times that a person is feeling gladness of heart, and those are times when a person would recite special bracha. Our Mishnah tells us to say the bracha shehechiyanu. For some reason, it is not commonly said nowadays. So in other words, if you buy a new suit, theoretically, it would be appropriate to say a bracha shehechiyanu, something significant, a suit, fancy suit. But for some reason, the bracha shehechiyanu did not have such great mazel. And for some reason, people don't rush to recite this bracha on new clothing and even a bayis chadash, a new house. I don't know that people, when they purchase a house, if they say, if it's common to say, but it seems to me that it's a bracha that lost its it lost a lot of its
luster.
Usage. What is that?
Luster.
Okay, but first now it could be, when it comes to new fruits, people do, we do say it for certain times, like if you need a shehechiyanu bracha, where we're saying a bracha when we want to have a new fruit with us to add, or a new garment. So, like for example, a person blowing the shofar is supposed to wear a new garment on the second day Yontiv, or is supposed to for the Shehachiyanu at night of Rosh Hashanah, we have a new fruit, so that it's the bracha is also on the fruit. But so for some reason, for fruits, we seem to continue using the bracha Shehachiyanu, and but for other things, I don't know. It doesn't seem to me like people recite it as often as I think probably should be recited. Maybe nowadays people don't have as much enjoyment as they used to have when they would buy new clothing. And in the olden days, this was getting a new piece of clothing was a huge was something great. Here nowadays, maybe we buy clothing every day. You go to you just go to the store, and nowadays you even buy it on Amazon or whatever. So could be that we lost our enjoyment when it comes to purchasing clothing. In the olden days, it was a huge event. They would buy a new suit. But for whatever reason, the Mishnah tells us that it is appropriate to say Shehachiyanu. For whatever reason, we don't commonly do it. And then there is also a discussion I should mention. There is a big discussion in the commentaries if you're going to need to hem the clothing or tailor it. Would you say the bracha when you buy it, or you say the bracha when you actually put it on? And or it could be a difference. If it doesn't need tailoring, you could say the bracha when you buy it. If it needs tailoring, then you would say the bracha when you're going to put it on. So there are a lot of discussion about this among the halachic commentaries. Now, the Mishnah says you recite the bracha of Hadayon Ha'emes when something negative happens, even though something favorable might occur on account of it. And the same thing would apply for the good things. You would say a bracha toiva hametiv on favorable occurrences, even though something negative might come out from it afterwards. Then the Mishnah spoke about a tfilas shav. If a person davens in vain because they're asking for something that already happened. So, for example, person wants that their wife is pregnant, and they want the child to be a male. That would be a tfilah shav. That would be a prayer in vain, because the prayer is for the child is already decided what it is. Now, in truth, Hashem could change it over and say, well, we'll now make this child into a male. So in truth, you could theoretically do Hashem could make a miracle, but such a miracle is, at least the Mishnah holds, it's not appropriate to request such a thing. Yes, Ben.
I wanted to say, as to Ezra's question, I see in the dictionary, they say for religious matters is a dayan. In a religious court, it's a dayan, but in a regular court, it's a judge. It's a judgment. So I don't know if that makes a difference.
But we always say, you read Shoftim v'Shotrim titen lecha. So
there is Shoftim and there is Dayanim.
Yeah, but the Shoftim also discussed aspects of religious law. I mean, it's not.
Yeah, I think it's more of a mediator, and the judge gives the final judgment. So I think there is a little bit of difference there.
Okay. All right.
So thank you, Ben. Thank you for looking it up. The Mishnah continued and mentioned about these prayers for when a person enters a city
Rabbi,
Yes.
when you're talking about, I mean, there are a lot of Jews that don't ask their doctors what the sex of the child is. And so for them, with respect to what we were discussing before, is it really a tefillat shav? Because if they don't know until the time that the baby is born, how can you say it's a tefillah for nothing? If you understand what I'm asking.
So the thing is that what you're really asking is Hashem could make a miracle and change the sex of a baby to be the opposite gender. And why is that? Why is that really called a tefillah shav? You're asking Hashem for a miracle, and we sort of part of our davenings are asking Hashem for miracles. We do that, and so what's wrong now? The question is further magnified because the Gemara will mention a story of Leah finding out that she's pregnant and getting nervous that Rachel is now not even going to have two boys, and she won't be equal to the two maidservants. And Leah was nervous, so she davened that it should be a female, and turned out to be Dinah. And so we do find a source that for davening for a child to change that their gender should be switched. Now, so we'll see that in the Gemara, but the idea is that you're not supposed to ask for such a type of miracle that's shaloi kederech hateva, and it's sort of a unnecessary miracle, or it's a it's asking Hashem to break the boundaries of nature. You know what I mean? When we're asking for a miracle, normally, it's fine. That's one thing. But then there's the breaking the boundaries of nature. It seems that could be the issue. The other issue is, what is the person really davening for? Is he davening that he wants the child? Is he asking Hashem to change the gender? Maybe that could be okay. But if you're asking Hashem, I hope you're confusing yourself between prayer and hope. You know what I mean? So it's called a tefillah shav because you're saying, oh Hashem, I hope the sirens are not for my house. I hope that what are you asking Hashem? I hope that the child is a male. Do you want Hashem to change? You ask Hashem to change it from a female to a male. Ask Hashem to make it. In other words, you could. Your tefillah here is a confused tefillah. Your tefillah, you're in dream. You're trying to dream that I hope this is what it is. Ask Hashem for what you need. That's another thought that maybe sheds a little light on this.
But you mentioned the story. I mean, you mentioned about sirens. In that situation, when you're saying, please God, let it not be my house. It's a situation that's already happened because the sirens are basically saying to you or announcing to you that they're heading out towards whatever, a fire or something, God forbid, something happened to an individual. So I agree that it's a tefillat shav because it's already happened. So you can't change that. But in the case of until the child is actually born, if you really believe that, that you really want to have whatever, male or female, whatever, twins, and the event hasn't happened, why can't you make or ask Hashem to have it happen?
So the thing is that it did happen already. After 40 days, the child is either a male child or a female child. After 40 days of pregnancy. So
up until 40 days, you can actually ask.
Yeah. Until 40 days, you could ask. Once it's 40 days, now you might not know, and the doctor might not know, but and the truth is, there are sometimes the doctors even make mistakes with their. They think they see something on the sonogram and they don't. So sometimes they make mistakes as well. But so the thing is that after 40 days, it's already there what the child is. We just don't know, and so that would be a tefillas shav to say, I hope it's a boy. I'm davening to Hashem that I hope it's a boy. It's already it is what it is. The child is what it's already decided on. But anyway, we'll see a little in the Gemara about this with the with Rachel, with Leah, and the next thing that the Gemara talks about is that person is supposed to chayav adam levarich al hara'ah. The person is supposed to thank Hashem, bless Hashem for the bad, just as he blesses Hashem for the good. And the source is via Havta, loving Hashem, your God, with all your heart, with all your soul, with all your might. And the Mishnah goes through different opinions, different meanings of each of these words, not opinions, translations. So b'chol levavcha means with both of your inclinations. So the first thing that we should mention is, what does it really mean that you're supposed to thank Hashem for the bad, just like you thank Hashem for the good? And then we should also talk about what does it mean to serve Hashem with your Yetzer Hara. And at least go through the commentaries on this. What do the commentaries say? So when we talk about thanking Hashem, blessing Hashem for the bad, the same way we bless Hashem for the good. So the simple understanding, one of the simple understandings is that anything bad that happens is like a atonement for sins. And so when a person has this atonement for his sins, he is thanking Hashem. He should thank Hashem because he is receiving this cleansing. And so just like you would thank Hashem for something good, this is also something good because it is a cleansing of sin. That would be on a very simple level. The Rambam understands it a little differently. The Rambam understands it that the person should accept with simcha, with joy, and control his anger when something bad happens.
That's right.
And the same way you would feel when you are thanking Hashem for something good, you should control your anger and try to have the same simcha, the same good-heartedness, the same feeling when something bad happens, because all that Hashem does is good. And things sometimes look bad. In the end, something good. Things sometimes look good. In the end, it's something bad. So we don't really understand. We don't know what really is good or bad, and therefore, something bad happens. we should not allow our feelings to overcome us, and instead we should be in control of our feelings, because whatever Hashem does is latav of it, is for good. So it's a little different. In other words, the first explanation had to do with the fact that we are getting cleansed from sin. The second explanation is we don't know what's good or bad, and we know whatever Hashem does is good. So therefore, the same way you're thanking Hashem for the good and you don't really know what's going to come out of it, it's the same thing you should thank Hashem for the bad, because you don't know what's coming out of it. In other words, good things could end up being bad, bad things could end up being good. The same way you thank Hashem for good, you should thank Hashem for the bad, because ultimately it's good from Hashem. So we don't have to emphasize the any cleansing of sin, or we know that whatever Hashem does is for the good, and we have to try to control our emotions. Another explanation given is that that when bad things happen to a person, and if he accepts it with love, because that's what Hashem decreed upon him, so he's in other words, the mitzvah is to accept it with love, because you know that this is what Hashem has decreed upon you, and you accept it. You're serving Hashem in this way, and the same way you would thank Hashem for something good, you are doing the same. You are feeling the same when something bad happens, because you're serving Hashem in a way that you're like understanding that this is how Hashem is decreeing upon you, and in a certain sense, it's almost like acceptance. You're accepting it, and I think this is connected to an idea mentioned in Kabbalistic writings. The Torah brings this down, but he doesn't explain it so clearly. But I believe it's connected to an idea that's written in Kabbalistic writings, that Ashrei ha'ish asher tiyasrenu ka. Praiseworthy is the person that Hashem rebukes him, Hashem chastises him. And what this means is that Hashem is having a closeness to the person. The person is getting a certain closeness to Hashem that couldn't be revealed in something good. It ends up being revealed. It's from such a high source that it couldn't express itself. This closeness couldn't express itself in something that's revealed good, and instead it reveals itself in something negative. But it's a certain closeness that a person has to Hashem, and Hashem and the person is feeling that closeness. Anyway, it's a very high level, and but basically we are expected to thank Hashem and praise Hashem for with the same level of simcha as something good that happened. Now, the next thing that the Mishnah spoke about is loving Hashem with all your heart, and the pasuk, the word used is levavcha with two bases. It spells levavcha instead of libcha, and it hints to what the Mishnah says, bishnei yitzarecha, your two yitzers, your two inclinations. So what does it mean to serve Hashem with your evil inclination? In other words, we understand how you serve Hashem with your good inclination, but what does it mean to serve Hashem with your evil inclination? So here also you have a number of commentaries struggling to explain how you serve Hashem with your evil inclination. So the Rambam explains that even at a time that a person is very upset, a person should try to overcome that. And even though his evil inclination is ruling over him, he should try to fill his heart with love of Hashem, and by doing that, you're serving Hashem with your Yetzer Hara. Or if something bad happens and you are able to love Hashem or praise Hashem, that is a way of even you're getting your Yetzer Hara to serve Hashem, so to speak, because you're overcoming your Yetzer Hara, and by doing that, by overcoming your Yetzer Hara, that's what it means to serve Hashem with your Yetzer Hara. It means to overcome your Yetzer Hara at a time when and you're loving Hashem at a time when things are not going good for you. Another explanation is that the serving Hashem with your Yetzer Hara is when you have to act in a cruel way. In other words, at certain times when you have to act strict, that's serving Hashem with your Yetzer Hara. Serving Hashem with your Yetzer Tov is when you act in a merciful way. But so in other words, when it says you serve Hashem with both of your Yetzers, it means you're serving Hashem and you're doing things that seemingly, I guess, are coming from they're sourced in your negative traits, so to speak. In other words, you're using strictness, even though it's it would seemingly be connected to your Yetzer Hara. You're using it for a good thing. That's how you serve Hashem with your Yetzer Hara. When you take that negative trait and you use it for something good, that would be serving Hashem in such a way. Yes, Ben.
Maybe it's like when the Rebbe of Berdichev saw somebody greasing his wagon and with the talus. He says, look at him. Even when he walks, he's praying.
Right. He was saying Shema, I think, when he was he was fixing the wheel, saying Shema.
So that's the bad and the good,
Okay, yeah,
interesting. Hashem in the good and in the bad,
Right, interesting. Okay, so according to this explanation that I was saying, so it's that if he screamed at someone for doing something wrong, that would be using his anger for a mitzvah.
Yeah.
So it's you're twisting it a little, but the initial explanation was that if he uses like almost like using his some negative trait, but he uses it for a mitzvah, that would be this explanation. Okay, now the another explanation is anything that's worldly. It's similar to this, but anything that you do that you're involved in the world and you have in mind for Hashem, kol ma'asecha yu l'shem shamayim. That's what it means, Yetzer Hara, that you're serving Hashem with your Yetzer Hara means in worldly matters. So that would be similar to your explanation, to your point, Ben. So in other words, even when a person is fixing his car, he's thinking about Hashem. Even when a person is involved in a party, but he's says a Dvar Torah there, or he tries to do so. He uses it for L'Shem Shamayim to encourage people to be an inspiration, and so he uses it for Hashem's purpose. That's how you serve Hashem with your Yetzer Hara. Another explanation is that whenever you do a negative mitzvah, that's called serving Hashem with your Yetzer Hara. Whenever you do a positive mitzvah, that's serving Hashem with your Yetzer Tov. So these are an explanation of how to serve, what it means serving Hashem with your evil inclination. there is a medrash that says that what's the appropriate thing? Should a person say, I wish I could eat treif, but what should I do? God commanded me not to. Or should a person say, I have no desire to eat treif? What's better? What's the appropriate thing? So the Medrash says, how do you know that a person should not say, I have no desire for eating chazer. I have no desire to wear kilayim. I have no desire to have forbidden relations. Rather, I do have a desire, but Hashem commanded me not to. That's the medrash. So what this means is that
the second one is B'chol Mo'odecha.
Well, they're trying this commentary. The Rishon LeZion wants to say that this is the meaning. This is the meaning of B'chol Levavcha, and he says that you're serving Hashem with your Yetzer Hara because you really want to have it and you're controlling it. So that's what it means to serve Hashem, that you're serving Hashem with your Yetzer Hara. Now, there is another explanation here that says that there are two ways of controlling yourself. One is, it's called control, in Kavishas Hayetzer, and the other is to be masaking, to fix the Yetzer and turn it over for good. In Kabbalistic writing, they would use the term iskafia and ishapcha. Here, this is from a Usher sefer. It's called Or Yisrael. I think it's from Rabbi Yisrael Salanter. I'm not sure, but anyway, they bring this. It's a similar terminology, similar concepts, I should say. That there's controlling the Yetzer Hara, as you have it under control, or there's changing it over for good. So he says that when you serve Hashem with your Yetzer Tov, with your good inclination, so what that means is that you control yourself, you control everything, and you're serving Hashem. But when you serve Hashem with your Yetzer Hara, what that means is that you've changed over, you've conquered your Yetzer Hara, you've turned it over for good, and that's how you really serve Hashem with your Yetzer Hara. Now this is a powerful insight, that serving Hashem with your Yetzer Hara means ishapcha, basically. The Kabbalistic term would be ishapcha, which means that you've changed over your evil inclination for good. You've conquered it. Not that you're in control of it, but you've conquered it and turned it over for good. Then you serve Hashem. That's how you really are serving Hashem with your Yetzer Hara, because you've taken the Yetzer Hara and turned it into the term in Kabbalistic writings is you've killed it. You've killed the Yetzer Hara through fasting. There is such a concept. But you've turned it over for good. You've done the ishapcha and fixed the Yetzer Hara, and now you're serving Hashem, and that is called loving Hashem b'chol levavcha, with your Yetzer Hara, through changing it over, through conquering it. So another way of serving Hashem with your Yetzer Hara, and this is like an interesting point, because this is this final explanation that I'm going to share with you is like it's a very interesting insight. The Yetzer Hara sometimes gets you to do a mitzvah that you'll end up doing an avera with it. So he tells you, let's say, to go to a certain place because you got to do a mitzvah over there. But really, when you're there, you're going to end up seeing things that are inappropriate, getting involved with people that are inappropriate. So the Yetzer Hara pulls you to do some mitzvah and wants to trick you into getting involved in Averas. Now, if you trick the Yetzer Hara because you do the mitzvah and you don't fall into his trap, that's serving Hashem with your Yetzer Hara. That you let the Yetzer Hara pull you to do a mitzvah and then you don't fall into its trap. So you've served Hashem with your Yetzer Hara. Okay, anyway, my time is up. But basically what we've discussed is the idea, the understanding of what the Mishnah means, that you're supposed to serve Hashem with your Yetzer Hara. We've given a number of explanations. We explained also about thanking Hashem, praising Hashem for the bad, just like you praise Hashem for the good. We've gone through the idea of the mitzvah of saying a bracha shachiyanu and on something new, and we spoke about the bracha of asa nisim laveseinu b'makam hazeh, praising Hashem for miracles that he did. In this place, removing avodah zara she'akar akom me'artzenu or me'hamakam hazeh, for the oisa ma'isa bereshis brachas, for the wondrous acts that Hashem did with creation, and Yam Hagadol, creating the big sea, the whichever that refers to, the Mediterranean, the ocean. And so Mitzvah Hashem, tomorrow we'll continue where we left off. Okay, Zai Gesund, everyone. Have a great day.
Zai Gesund.
Rabbi.
Thank you,
Rabbi.
Bye, Rabbi.
Thank you, Rabbi.
Okay.